Did you suddenly get a lump sum payment? Maybe you got lucky, got a bonus from work, or you inherited some money from a family member, and now you're thinking of paying off your IVA with this money. But before you make any hasty decisions, it's important to understand the rules and regulations surrounding paying off an IVA early, and the dire consequences that can happen if you try and hide this money from your IVA. In this video, I'll be discussing the rules for paying off an IVA early and exploring the options available to you. We'll also be covering the potential consequences of paying off an IVA early and the steps you need to take to ensure a successful outcome. Just to be clear, I don't give financial or legal advice, I'm just making sure that you have access to the information you need to make informed decisions. What is an IVA? First, we've got to quickly highlight what an IVA actually is. Basically, when you enter an IVA, you agree to pay any money in your bank account in excess of your living costs to the insolvency practitioner at the end of every month. The insolvency practitioner will divide this amount between each of the people that you owe money to. These payments usually continue for 5 or 6 years, and at the end of these 5 or 6 years, any remaining debt in your name is written off and the agreement ends. If you're curious about how much money you'll have to live on with an IVA, then check out the video linked in the card at the top of your screen now. During the 5 years of your IVA, the insolvency practitioner will keep a close eye on your finances to give you debt advice and to plan how your creditors should be paid back. This means you should not hide any money or assets from your IVA, as the likelihood of getting caught is very high and you'll probably end up going bankrupt and losing the finances you were trying to hide in the first place. So if you do receive a large lump during your IVA, say like an inheritance for instance, then the best thing to do is to speak immediately to your IP about it. However, it's worth noting that if you receive the money before or after your IVA, then you should be fine to keep it. If you're still curious about this, then we also have a video about IVAs and inheritances up here. Windfalls. So if you've got some inheritance money or even a loved one who's offering to pay off your IVA, how do you go about it? First up, as already mentioned, you need to speak to your insolvency practitioner. This will make sure that they're in the loop so you won't be accused of withholding funds, and additionally, they will be the person with the most knowledge about your IVA and should be able to give you some of the best advice. There's usually a windfall clause written into most IVAs. A windfall is any unexpected inflow of extra cash that you gain, like winning the lottery or inheriting something during your IVA. If the windfall is larger than your remaining debt, you'll have to pay the debt in full, plus the fees of your practitioner and the statutory interest on your debt. This would have the effect of ending your IVA early, and any windfall remaining after everything is paid will be yours to keep. Though, be aware, whereas following the normal course of an IVA will usually see a portion of your debt written off after the 5 or 6 years, if you suddenly have the cash available to cover everything you owe, you may have to pay off the whole remaining amount with none getting written off. This means that whilst you will get the benefit of exiting your IVA early, you may have paid a lot more than if you'd continued making regular monthly payments for the full term. Of course, there's nothing you can do about money that's received unexpectedly during your IVA, like a lottery win or an inheritance. However, if a generous friend or a family member is thinking of helping you out of your IVA, you may need to carefully consider the pros and cons first. If you receive a windfall which is less than your total debt, all of it will go towards paying off your remaining debt. If a significant amount of the debt still remains after your windfall is distributed to your creditors, then this may have little effect upon your IVA's length, and you'll still need to keep making payments towards the remaining debt each month. If only a small amount of debt remains after you've used your windfall money, then your IP will advise you as to how to proceed. However, if the windfall amount is under £500, it usually does not have to be paid to your IVA, though you should still declare it to your insolvency practitioner. If you happen to have any essential items that need replacing or repairing, something like an unreliable washing machine for instance, then mention these to your IP, as they will be more inclined to let you keep the money if it's going towards an essential item. Whatever the windfall amount, hiding your assets from your IVA is not a good idea, especially so if it's over £500 in value. You risk going bankrupt and losing your money anyway. It's better to just pay the lump sum IVA debt with the extra cash instead of trying to hide it and risking an IVA failure. Cancelling an IVA. Now let's say your circumstances change dramatically and you expect to be able to pay off your debt in the near future. You might consider cancelling your IVA. But before making any decisions, it's essential to talk to your insolvency practitioner for professional advice. They will be able to determine if cancelling your IVA is the right decision for you based on your personal circumstances and financial situation. So how exactly do you go about cancelling your IVA? There are two main ways to do this. The best option is to talk to your practitioner and creditors to explain your reasons for cancelling the IVA. However, keep in mind that your creditors will only agree to the cancellation if you can offer them a better alternative and promise to repay the debt. But what if your creditors and IP don't accept the proposition? If they don't accept the proposition, you'll have no choice but to continue with your current agreement up until the duration that was initially agreed. The only way to cancel an IVA is to get all the creditors on board with the cancellation. Another far less recommended option is to just simply stop making payments, but this would probably lead to a lot of legal trouble and bankruptcy. It's important to know that only a licensed practitioner who is aware of your specific circumstances can determine if cancelling your IVA is the right decision for you. Your practitioner is obliged to keep you informed confidentially, and they won't be able to talk about your debt with anyone else. If you're considering cancelling your IVA, it's crucial to take your time and understand all the options and consequences before making a decision. Make sure to seek out professional advice from a licensed practitioner and never be afraid to ask questions or seek clarification on any aspect of the process. Paying off an IVA early, pros and cons. So what are some of the pros and cons of paying off your IVA early? The pros. Firstly, you'll be able to take back control of your income once again. You'll no longer be having to spend on just living essentials. Treats, holidays, gifts for your loved ones and more all become options for you once again. Secondly, you can immediately start to rebuild your credit score back up again. Whilst in an IVA, your credit score will be very low. By ending it early, you can start to take steps to build it back up again. The cons. It may cost a lot more than seeing your IVA through to completion. When you see your IVA to completion, usually 60 weeks or 5 years, you'll only be paying a small amount towards your debt each month from what you can afford after your living essentials. After these 60 weeks, any remaining debt should be written off, though it may be more complicated and more expensive if you're a homeowner. By paying off your IVA early in one go, you may well lose the option of having a portion of that debt written off. Instead, you'll likely have to pay the full balance on your debt as well as IP fees in order to free yourself from your IVA early. Your credit score will still be very poor. Whilst no longer being in an IVA will enable you to start rebuilding your credit score, you'll be starting from a very low score indeed. This is because IVAs have a dramatic negative effect on credit scores, and the mention of an IVA will remain on your credit report for 6 years from the date it began, even if you pay it off early. What alternatives are there to an IVA? So knowing now the pros and cons of paying off an IVA early, if you haven't already begun your IVA, then you should take this all into account before making your final decision. Whilst it's true that you can write off some debt with an IVA, and there can be an effective, affordable way out of debt, people really should consider other options. You've got bankruptcy, debt relief orders, debt management plans, and even free options, like the avalanche method or the snowball method. Some are free to use and others include fees, and each will have their own pros and cons. It can be tough to work out which is best, and you need to take into account your own finances before you choose. If you want to learn more about the various solutions available, then we've created a really great form that you might be interested in checking out. Click the link in the description to get started and answer a few multiple choice questions like the total amount of your debt, how many people you owe, your living situation, and we'll connect you with one of our trusted partners so that you can find out more and take steps towards improving your financial situation.